So hey everyone, how you doing? Another kind of random bike chat video splashed over specialized Diverge Ride footage really. And the reason being is, well, actually when I was kind of putting the Throwback Thursday video together, which is up on the channel now, it's actually been up a couple of days, I was kind of going back through a couple of the hard drives that I've got and just really looking at kind of the different footage that I've recorded throughout different times of the year. Now, initially I was trying to kind of find maybe the same route that I'd perhaps done during the winter and then also during the summer. Wasn't necessarily going to upload that as a video, but I thought it'd be quite interesting to kind of look how the surroundings have actually changed, because the one thing I've noticed, certainly in my local area, is pretty much if I haven't been to a certain area for a little while and then I go back, something's changed, be it, there's, I guess, more leaves on the trees, or actually more often than not what's happening at the moment is they're building new roads, new industrial estates or housing estates. So everything just seems to change. So anyway, kind of got a bit sidetracked there, but one thing that I did find was quite a lot, actually way more than I'd kind of remembered recording specialized Diverge footage. And the one thing that I've definitely found with this bike, I've commented on it God knows how many times before, is first thing is that I used it way more than I thought I would. So actually by the time this video makes it up on the channel, I will have had the bike a year. I think, just kind of going back really to why I actually bought it in the first place, and then kind of thinking about the year that we've had. I know I sound like an X Factor contestant, my journey, but there is kind of a serious point to this. So actually the reason for buying it, I think I've mentioned before actually in a video, that the UK Cycle to Work scheme was kind of back up and running through work. It does have a £1,000 cap, and I was kind of looking for something a little bit different. You could argue that a gravel bike's not really different considering how popular they are at the moment, but what I mean is something different compared to what I already owned. So at that point in time, I think I owned a time trial bike. I think I had my Venge, which I certainly did, and I also had a kind of dedicated winter road bike. So I picked this up in September of 17, this being the Specialized Diverge, and as a consequence, I think I used the dedicated winter bike in kind of air quotes twice. Now, once actually during the winter, and then once kind of at the start of the summer when the Venge was in the bike shop. So it more or less made the dedicated winter bike kind of null and void, and it was a decent enough bike. It wasn't anything high end, but it was certainly decent enough, and it just spent pretty much that entire time, so the last 12 months, sat on the turbo trainer, so much so that I've actually now sold it. So that kind of leads me into, I guess, kind of the ramblings and sort of the purpose of this video really, or at least one of them. And that is the amount of feedback and the amount of conversation that I've had around this bike has also been way more than what I ever expected. Actually, the night when I picked the bike up, I did do a very quick kind of 3-4 minute video, just really with a camera sort of panning around the bike, looking at the equipment that came on it. I'll be honest, at that time I had no idea kind of the level of performance with the Sora group set. I'd never ridden it. I'd pretty much for the last couple of years at the very least ridden kind of mechanical 105, which is a very, very capable road group set, and other than that it had been Di2. So it was really limited experience. I guess the other thing as well that kind of popped out was the Praxis chain set that came on the bike, and also the ratio. It had been quite a while since I'd spent a considerable sort of amount of time really on anything below a sort of mid-compact. So it certainly wasn't a criticism, but it was definitely going to be something that was different, riding lower ratios. So kind of a year on after all of the conversation on the internet, I did decide to sell that dedicated winter bike, and the reason being is as I've already said, I use this way more than I thought I would, but as well as being a very capable off-roader, certainly kind of these light trails and the type of footage that you guys are seeing now, I've also used it, I would say, probably 10% of the time on sort of tarmac as well, maybe even a little bit more. And at no point have I ever thought, God, I'm really kind of losing out on speed here, or I really feel like I'm miles behind where I would be if I was riding, say, the Venge. You definitely have to put more effort into it when riding it on the road, but it's not an uncomfortable amount. You don't ever feel like you're kind of slogging yourself and really not making any progress. And it's, I guess what's been pretty interesting about that is just recently talking to a couple of guys, no idea where they are in the world, and this is kind of the beauty of the internet, but guys who have actually been picking the videos up and have decided to go with the Diverge really as their kind of entry level to road cycling. Because it's a comfortable bike, because it's an all-rounder, they've actually decided to go with that. So just on that, thank you very much for all of the feedback, all of the conversation over the last 12 months or so. I'm glad that it's had a positive impact. There are some people who are critical of the bike or critical of Specialized, and I totally get that. Some of the price points for the different models are a little bit questionable if you consider the group set and I guess the finishing kit, but that is the nature of the big brands, unfortunately. They're all at it. They're all in it to make profit. And it isn't going to change. The only way that it will change is if people stop buying the bikes, and even then, I mean, how long would that take? Pretty long time. Because if you want something that's reliable, and most people do, let's face it, and they can kind of stretch to a certain price point, then they will go for one of the big brands, because hopefully it gives them some comfort. In terms of where we are now with this bike, obviously I have changed pretty much everything. The last kind of Project Diverge video, if you haven't seen any of those, just very quickly, it was a kind of 3-part, I think it was 3 anyway, possibly 4, kind of 3-4-part series looking at the Diverge and actually all of the parts that I was going to change. Now, I still maintain that out of the box, this bike is a pretty good bike. It's still a good all-rounder. And actually the Sora group set is more than serviceable, very capable. And yeah, there's not really an awful lot to kind of be concerned about with the bike out of the box. My primary reason for making all the changes that I did was actually the brakes, wanting to go from mechanical disc brakes to hydraulic disc brakes. So I'm a few weeks after kind of completing all of those upgrades now. I'm very pleased with them. I don't think the bike is kind of miles ahead of where it was, not one bit. Certainly the braking or the upgraded brakes definitely gives me more confidence. But other than that, the bike ride's pretty much the same. Certainly no noticeable difference. One question that does keep coming up actually kind of sporadically is the seat post, which I kind of overlooked because I already had that in the garage, so I actually swapped the seat post over kind of day one. I've never even ridden the bike on the alloy post that came with it. So yeah, the question that keeps coming up around the post, but actually more recently, is kind of to do with the rear end comfort. I need to put my teeth back in. So it's not really something that I can comment on in terms of actual kind of seat post comparison. I have offered, and I think I might do this actually, because then it will actually give me some insight as well into what difference that seat post actually makes. So for anybody who hasn't actually seen the bike, you can go over and take a look at it, but it's actually I think it's the CGR-L specialized seat post. So it's that kind of strange looking thing that's got the Zertz insert in it. It's been around for a number of years. I did actually see that it popped up recently on the internet, so I don't know whether they've kind of revised it or whether they've just potentially relaunched it, kind of rehashed it, maybe changed a couple of things. I'm not too sure, but I don't really see how it can be all that different from the one that I have. Mine's probably about 18 months old, so I don't know, maybe they've changed the kind of flexibility of the insert or something, or maybe the carbon layup of the post, who knows. But anyway, going back to the point, I think what I will do, especially as we get kind of deeper into winter or deeper into autumn perhaps, is swap the seat post back over, go back to the alloy post, and just maybe clock up kind of 100-150 miles on the road on this bike, and then swap it across, use this and do exactly the same thing. So go over to that CGL or CGRL seat post and just kind of clock up 100-150 miles and see what the difference is. I think in doing so, in order to kind of get a sort of accurate comparison, I'm probably going to have to swap the tyres out as well, because I am running chunkier tyres, and I think for me that's probably the biggest difference in terms of comfort and kind of overall ride. I think it would be the tyres that will make the biggest difference. So I do still have the original kind of 30, I think they're 30s or possibly 32mm wide Specialized tyres. Not a massive pain for me to kind of swap those across. The only other variable that I've got, and this kind of goes back to where I was probably about 3 or 4 minutes ago, a nice little tangent, is actually since concluding the Project Diverge series of videos, I have also fitted new wheels as well now. I did mention this, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I had a bit of a sticky free hub on the original wheels. So if anybody else has kind of experienced that, drop me a message in the comments section, because I'd be quite keen to know whether I was just unlucky or whether actually there's a bit more of an issue with these wheels. Personally, although they were kind of bottom end axis wheels, I actually thought that they were pretty decent, and they certainly stayed true enough anyway. I have taken them on some fairly rough off-road trails, so they held up from that point of view. But yeah, the free hub kept sticking, and particularly as there was kind of less tension in the chain, so kind of lower down in the rear cassette, the chain was going slack whenever I stopped pedaling, and one of my concerns is that the chain, maybe on certain camber, if I'm leaning in corners or whatever, was going to kind of waft its way into the spoke. So I just thought I'd kind of probably used up my luck with that, and it was probably going to happen sooner rather than later. So I thought, we're running into winter, now would be a good time to actually upgrade the wheels. So I will give you guys a look at those as well at some point. So I've gone for a pair of DT Swiss. I've got good experience with DT Swiss wheels, especially the hubs. Very easy to service, and just a reliable brand really. So I thought they were kind of a nice finishing touch to the bike. They don't look anything special, but got a nice noisy free hub on there. For anybody who's watched the kind of ride videos from last weekend, you'll hear that, and you'll see actually how effective it is at getting pedestrians to turn around here when you come in and move out of the way. So that was a nice little touch as well. So final thing, just before I wrap up, I just want to say thank you very much to all my new subscribers, anybody who's dropped me a comment in the last sort of 12 months or so that I've had this bike. Channel is around about 15-16 months old now, but really it's only got going in kind of the last 10 to 12 months. So I do appreciate that. Keep it all coming. I will do my best to reply to everything, whether or not I can answer it properly or not. If I can't, I'll tell you I can't, but hopefully point you in the right direction. So big thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and thank you very much for watching.